So today is the last day from the last public session for the Supreme Court's term. They're expected to rule on 6 more cases, including birthright citizenship. Now, this case is about the birthright citizenship of children born in the United States to undocumented immigrants.
And when he took office, President Trump signed an executive order which lower courts have currently blocked that denies protections offered by the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution to those who are born on U.S. soil. The court's also expected to rule on a case from Maryland where parent groups have sued to be able to remove their children from lessons in public schools that are taught with books that contain stories including LGBTQ characters.
Another case, free speech rights over a Texas law that requires age verification to access pornographic material online. This law is in effect in more than a dozen states, including North Carolina. The justices will take the bench at 10 o'clock this morning. But joining us now with a preview of all of that, we've got our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, you've got a very busy morning yourself on this.
We are very, very close, right? An hour and a half, 10 o'clock Eastern time. We should be seeing some type of ruling start to roll out of the 6 that are left. We have, like you mentioned, religion versus LGBTQ. I'll put them in these categories. We have porn versus the First Amendment. We got Louisiana redistricting, health care in the Constitution, phone and internet subsidies, and birthright citizens, sort of. That one is a mixed bag. Even though birthright citizenship is taking the full argument, it's really not on the case and on the docket. What the court wanted to talk about and what they wanted to address is the implication of nationwide injunctions. So they used the case to get their good facts, good case, good court. I always mention those 3. If you can push a case forward under that manner, that's all they wanted to talk about. Birthright is the part that will get folks to be frustrated and look at this, but the court will only rule on and make an order that addresses, because that's what's in front of the court. That's the question presented, is should judges have the ability, lower court, inferior court judges, have the ability to grant these nationwide injunctions. So that's what they'll address.
Okay, and what do you expect? How are you expecting that decision to go, and what will the trickle-down effect be to North and South Carolina?
I think, well, this is a major one. If the judges, if an inferior court judge doesn't have the ability to make and do a nationwide injunction specifically for a case that affects the nation, then it will be problematic, and it undercuts any type of social, civil rights, justice, civil rights movements that have happened in the past. The typical approach is if the president or the legislature creates a law, or the president does some executive order that affects nationwide and has nationwide implications, you run to court and get some type of injunction to stop that from occurring. And you don't want it to just happen in Mecklenburg County. You want to make sure that it stops it for the whole entire country, because the president wasn't just talking to that one county, he was talking to the country. That's the rationale. Now, a judge that hears those type of cases, they could say, well, my ruling only affects and only addresses North Carolina. And typically they don't. Typically they'll say mine will have a ruling that will affect the country. I think this court wanted to hear this case, and if I have to be a gambling man, I'm saying that it's going to be a close vote, but they're going to try to find a way to roll back these nationwide injunctions. And so I think that they will not address the birthright portion. There may be some talk about we can address this at a later time, but I think if you're procedurally looking at this, they're saying we have to roll this back specifically because this is what the president keeps talking about. And I just think the numbers are there. I don't think it's 6-3, but I think it's probably 5-4 in favor of getting rid of the nationwide injunctions, or at least rolling back their power and authority.
Another case I wanted to talk with you about, too, was the case out of Maryland, where we're looking at whether parents can opt their students out of certain materials, but really it's looking more at religious rights in terms of school and children and families, right?
It is 100%. It's saying that, listen, because I have a genuinely held religious belief, and I've talked about this a number of times here in the past, that the religion doesn't have to be an established religion. It can be a religion that you made up, as long as you genuinely believe that this religion is something that you hold dear and near and that you follow. And as long as you followed in one of your practices, hey, I don't want my kids engaging in or participating in LGBTQ material, then now, and it's based on my religion, I have a constitutional right to not be able to have them involved in that. The court is now unpacking that. And I think, again, if we're looking at the day of the time, would say that they would side with the parents that are bringing this case, and that the LGBT books, the Maryland's parents would probably lose in this manner. And the parents that are fighting the LGBTQ books would lose for sure.
I feel like as more generations come on board, that the baby boomer generation, our parents, kind of the last generation that really would follow Supreme Court hearings and rulings, right? I think
Right.
the younger generations, even including myself, we don't follow as much. But there's a lot of heavy rulings that are coming down today that could affect that could affect our kids' generations. I mean, as you look at some of these, what advice would you give people watching going, this is why this matters? This is not just headlines that we're giving you on TV right now.
Pay attention. That's the first thing I'd say.
Yeah.
When it pops up on your screen and it says breaking news, don't swipe up and just get rid of it so you can get back to scrolling and swiping on other things. I think we all do that. But then as you take time to go back and look and say, well, actually, let me click on it and see what the breaking news says. I mean, this Louisiana redistricting one, this goes back to the 50s and 60s when they were saying, okay, we're systematically redistricting districts to make sure that black folks can't vote. And so the federal government came in and said, you know what? We probably don't want to do that. So we'll carve out and make sure you have a mandatory requirement to at least give these folks that live there an opportunity to vote. So now if you get rid of this, now we're going back 60, 70 years. That's how much time this has been in effect. And it probably took 20, 30, 40 years before that to be enacted. And so if you're not focusing, you're watching maybe 60 to 70 years of history be eroded right in front of you. I mean, something that's here in North Carolina, the porn versus the First Amendment one. I mean, that requiring folks to submit a verification. North Carolina opted into that type of thing. Other states have done that. The porn industry has fought back and said, hey, no, this is something that's more burdensome on us and is more burdensome on our users. Specifically, you have a constitutional right to acquire First Amendment access. In this category, it's pornography. They want to have an access to do it and don't want to add any additional burdens or hurdles on that. The court will unpack that. The Supreme Court famously said, when addressing porn, you'll know it when you see it. Well, in North Carolina, if you have a license, you'll be able to have access to see it. That's the argument that they'll talk about today. And I think they probably will go against the states that are attempting to block those folks based on First Amendment argument. So all these cases I'm watching, and I'm kind of hedging where I think they'll go right now, but it's a lot to look at for sure. So I should say the generation, our generation, the younger generation, they should pay attention.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Khalif. We got you for it. One more topic coming up next hour. We appreciate that.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.